Good Tov, we continue with our 3 minute daily dose of Torah and looking at the question of shofar, not shofar, of Megillah, heard through the medium of Zoom or the radio or other non-present experiences. Some of the teshuvot that are written on this matter, the response are written actually about the use of a microphone. And there is a significant discussion about whether or not you're hearing, again, the original sound of the shofar, or everyone understands that there's something that takes place when you speak into a microphone, and then the sound is produced. You hear the sound out of a speaker that you're not hearing directly from the mouth. There is a digital or not digital, depending on what period we're talking about, but there is certainly a scientific reality that the sound waves that were produced are then somehow converted to electronic impulses and then reproduced on the other side. And some of the discussion is that you're not hearing the original sound at all. You're hearing the recreation, and the recreation is acceptable. Whether or not, as yesterday we talked about the kol havara, the echo sound, this would be the other possibility of what's problematic there is you're not hearing then hearing the original sound, you're hearing a recreation. Pushback or response in the discussion of halachic matters suggests that, well, we call this koach kocho. It's koach kocho. It is my koach, my strength, produce another strength, and is that a reason not to allow this? And some say, yeah, koach kocho is no good. And others say that no, koach kocho would be fine as long as you have clarity and not confusion. And part of the other discussion around something like a shofar, around a microphone, is are you experiencing it the way normal people would experience the sound? And especially, they say, if you're in a room where you see the person reading the Megillah in the front of the room, and you hear the sound, pretty much feels like the experiential component. It feels like you're connected to the one who is doing it. So that might be sufficient. Now, how does that work though? Then, if you're on the other side of a radio, right? That might be different. Do you say you had that experience or not? And so there you have the interesting variation on the question. But to the extent that when you actually have a Zoom situation, you see the person reading, and your experiencing of it is that you are hearing him, even though you do know that there's a digitizing factor that's going on, that might be a basis to permit. And what you'll find is that the poskim who have hesitations or more about these matters, there are those who say absolutely forbidden. This is not the sound of the original sound. Doesn't work. It accomplishes nothing. Forbidden, not forbidden, but you accomplish nothing. Others say they're not so sure. Important people say they're not so sure. They would prefer not to do these newfangled things as they talk about them. But they certainly recognize that in difficult, pressing situations, for example, the discussion that Tzitz Eliezer, who sort of seems to recognize the possibility. Other points he says no. Rabbi Eliezer Waldenberg, but he says if let's say you're in a hospital and people all across the ward need to hear Megillah, and you're simply not going to be able to do it in person. So if you can do it over the speaker system, he seems to recognize that you would not say of such a thing that you haven't fulfilled your obligation. And so you say, well, that's not a ringing endorsement. And the answer is we don't need a ringing endorsement in a year of a pandemic. We're relying on opinions in a complicated situation. And if a person, again, feels out of his own necessity of protecting his health or her health, that they don't feel they should be present with other people, if that's where you are, if you're at that level where you would not be gathering with people otherwise, then indeed we've taken the position here, as many other modern poskim have, that you can rely on this Zoom Megillah reading. It's late. It's past 4 minutes, but I'll add one more factor which is that certainly what you should do, if you should be following along in a Megillah text, and if you have a kosher Megillah, meaning a klaf, then you're doing fine, right? You follow along and just make sure you mouth the words, then you're actually reading the Megillah yourself with somebody's assistance. That would be super to do that. Even if you lack that, try to follow along inside a text. And if you lack the text, just listen along. And for this year, we would say that this is acceptable. Next year, we hope that we won't need to rely on these technologies. We can be in person again to celebrate together. Have a great day.